Hey everybody, welcome back. It's the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beaton, joined by the Fantasy Master Lothario, the just gorgeous gentleman across from me on the YouTube channel, Gray Albright. How you doing over there, Gray?
Hey, B Don, what's going on, man? Pretty good. Just chilling. You know what I'm saying? Chilling like Gilligan out on an island, fishing with my string of bamboo. Caught something tasty. Hey, little white girl in a see-through nightie. No one to see this. I dropped my fluid like a chemist. What? I'm contained and she's a lame brain. Larger than Jim Backus, it's the cactus. That's third base. I talked to MC Search at one point over DM, and MC Search is a rapper in third base. Well, was was in third base. It's a group that dissolved about 35 years
anymore.
ago. Yeah, it dissolved like 1993. But I talked to him over DM, and I was like, "You want to come on? You want to come on the Razzball podcast?" And because in the past I had on Cypress Hills Be Real. We had on we had, oh my God, the worst. I'm going down a sidetrack. Anyway,
this is going to be 15 minutes, everybody. Just skip ahead if you don't want to hear it.
I was about to go down a long sidetrack. Anyway, MC Search said, nah. He said, nah.
We were about to hear every guest that Gray has ever asked to come on the Razzball podcast, everybody. That's what the was about to happen. He was about to list every celebrity he's ever asked to be on the podcast.
Honestly, the saddest thing ever, this is real fast, the saddest thing ever was I was talking to Fife from Tribe Called Quest, and he was going to come on, and then he died like a week later. So I swear to God, that's not a lie.
Awful, Gray.
I know. Like, imagine like one of your last correspondence in your email is like, you're going to be on the Razzball podcast.
What if he was on the show like right before? What was the last thing he did? What if that was the last thing he recorded?
Oh, it's probably better. You're right. You make up a good point. It's probably better he wasn't on.
although if it was the last thing he recorded, do you know how many views you would have? Do you know how many views that would have equaled? You'd be getting residuals still, Gray.
I know. He was coaching. I think it was college ball. He was coaching basketball, and I was like, "We could talk about basketball," and he was like, "No, we can talk about baseball. I don't care. I'm a baseball fan." And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome, man! Like, I love Tribe Called Quest." And then I saw in the news he passed away. I was like, "Oh man." Anyway, welcome to the Razzball podcast.
Did you ever ask anybody from
that wasn't I guess I should point out none of all the past hosts are still alive, so don't worry about it, P-Don.
Well, it's hard to tell if we're like hosts or just like long-term guest spots. It's about 3 years, so we'll see how this one goes. Did you ever ask anybody from the Bryan Woo Tang clan to come on, Greg?
Bryan Woo Tang clan. Look at P-Don.
Look at that segue. Look at that professional segue.
Nice. My man is a professional seguer.
So professional, we had to call it out for about 30 seconds here. In Double-A this year, he had a 2.05 ERA, he had a 0.89 WHIP across 44 innings. He had 59 Ks in those 44 innings. That's a 34% K rate. He had a 7% walk rate. The first start for him did not go as planned, though. He went 2 innings. He had 6 earned runs, 1 walk. However, he did strike out 4 of the 6 people he retired. So that's something in the right direction, at least, Gray. It's not clear whether the Mariners are going to give him another chance. It kind of depends on what the availability is for some people. Where are you at on Bryan Woo? Is he somebody that you're kind of keeping on the radar, or is this just they need a spot start? He was in the right position because he really had been kind of just killing it at Double-A.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, this week is a short week for the Mariners. I believe it's a 5-game week, and then next week it's the Mariners Marlins matchup. confusing on the tongue. So I think Woo is going to go next week for a Marlins start. I believe. I don't know 100%. Obviously, that's still contingent on, like you said, it depends on whether or not, someone else gets healthy, or maybe someone else, or maybe Woo gets sent down. I don't know. As of the recording right now, though, I believe Woo is set up to face the Marlins, I'm kind of interested. I mean, he didn't look good. Stating the obvious, like, he has a great fastball, but nothing else really was working, or technically has been working. I mean, he's got a solid slider. It generated some ground balls. He only threw one changeup, so it wasn't, it's like such a small sample size. It's hard to really put too much on that. But yeah, I mean, the fastball looked good. If he gets the Marlins, I'm kind of interested. I mean, it's like there's worse matchups, and he looked great in the minors, as you said. So yeah, I'd like to see him one more time. Since he's up, maybe we get to see him. Maybe we get to see him in that Marlins start. The Rangers. Speaking of good fastballs and not much else, Bryce Miller is another guy for the Mariners, and they both got roughed up by the Rangers. And the Rangers have been really good this year. They look great. Even when Corey Seager was out, they looked great. And then Corey Seager's now, he was the AL Player of the Week last week, so obviously he's doing really well. So yeah, I mean, I'm not totally encouraged, obviously, by him getting roughed up in that debut start, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him one more time. I'm interested against the Marlins. Yeah, I mean, maybe not start him in shallower mixed leagues, but I could see potentially, like, in a 15-team mixed league, if he gets a Marlins start. Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, kind of in a deep league situation where you have to throw somebody out, and it's like, well, I could start Lance Lanigan and let him just kick me in the nuts, or I can start Bryan Woo against the fifth lowest scoring in the league, Marlins. So that's maybe a situation where you go with Marlins, and I mean, the Rangers are leading the league in runs by 21 runs right now. So it's a tough offense right now. The Rangers, like, that's not an ideal start to have your first one of your career. Jonny Deluca's coming up as well. 292, 378, 574. He has 14 home runs, 12 stolen bases on the season. Where are you at on the Dodgers outfielder here?
Jonny Deluca, who is he was in charge of keeping Lana Turner's name out of the trades. Jonny Deluca is he's straight out of LA Confidential. Hey, Jonny Deluca's here from Look Magazine. Anyway, I was surprised at how flat the bidding was for Deluca in my leagues, at least in my NL only league. Like, I got him pretty easily. I could have bid less. Like, I bid out of $1,000, I bid like $70. So it's like, roughly $7 out of 100. I don't think anyone bid over 30. So, and that's a decent spread between 30 and 70. So I was kind of surprised by that. I figured in an NL only, it's an NL only 12-team mixed league. 12-team NL only. So, that's a deep league. No one's really on waivers. Like, it's a matter of like Deluca or some backup catchers, So it's, there's nothing really available. So I was surprised, for what it's worth. Anyway, that was just one NL only league. I don't know. I mean, if Deluca is just a lefty only guy, a guy who only faces lefties, then yeah, I mean, it's not great, obviously. I'm kind of interested to see how they use him. But if it is like he's replacing Trace Thompson, and Trace Thompson was a lefty only guy.
Yeah.
So if Deluca is also only facing lefties, then yeah, I mean, I guess I'd probably bid a little too much even in the NL only. He's fine for a very deep league. He does have power and speed. If he grows into a larger role with the Dodgers, then I'm interested. But for right now, it's kind of like wait and see.
Yeah, just kind of somebody to put on your radar, and just if he falls into more playing time, then he becomes interesting because you mentioned there's the power speed combo. He's always had good plate discipline coming up through the minors. He's never had a K rate over 20%. The walk rate has always kind of hovered around 8 to 10%. So like he's a solid player here, and if you get an opportunity with the Dodgers, they kind of sprinkle magic dust on you, and everything seems to work out in your favor. So just a name to monitor, and like I said, in deep leagues you can look at him. In daily leagues maybe where you can play the lefty righty game if you're willing to put in that level of changing out players. But that's kind of the level we're looking at right now. Luken Baker was called up, the first base / DH for the Cardinals. 54 games in AAA this year. He's hitting 313, 434, 641. He has 18 home runs, 45 runs, 53 RBIs. Luken Baker, I mean, does it seem like there's an opportunity for him to play every day? Or is this another kind of here and there type of bat, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, he was another guy who he actually went for more than DeLuca, which I mean, there's a case to be made, I guess. I was thinking he should go for more than DeLuca for what it's worth, but he went for more than I even was willing to bid. I think he went for this is NL only again, and in NL only, I think he went for 130. I want to say. I bid basically the same as I bid for DeLuca, around 70. Anyway, he looks just like Adam Dunn, which is kind of funny in a in a resemblance type way. I mean, he really looks like him, at least at bat. He's a big donkey, big donkey Baker. He's a big guy, man. He looks like, because of his age. I mean, I don't want to put the quad A tag on him, but I mean, I could see that being an issue. That I mean, there's a reason why he was in the minors until he was 26 years old. I mean, he's hit everywhere. Maybe there's something to the fact that the Cardinals have had someone in front of him and haven't needed him, so he hasn't really gotten the opportunity. But I mean, he looks like he has great power. He just is I think he's buried right now. He can't play anywhere but first base. They obviously have Goldschmidt. So he's gonna DH, but you have the situation where everyone can kind of DH on the Cardinals. If they want to get Edman Arrest out of center, if Tyler O'Neill comes back at some point. I don't even know what happened to Tyler O'Neill, to be honest. I'm not sure if Tyler O'Neill still exists, but Newt Bar will eventually come back. They have Juan Yepes, they have Mercado, they have a bunch of guys. So yeah, I like Baker, but similar situation to DeLuca where I don't know what the at-bats are going to be like. It's worth watching to see if he gets at-bats. He could hit for some power, but right now I think it's just an NL only play.
Yeah, and Tyler O'Neill is out for at least another week as he had a setback as he's coming back from the lower back issues he was having. So that's part of the opening there. And I mean, you're right. I mean, they had Juan Yepes, who hit just fine last year, that got stuck in the minors at the beginning of the season. We know our boy Jordan Walker got buried in the minors for hitting bad for a week and just getting sent down. So I mean, they had people in front of them. Goldschmidt's been there. They signed Arenado, and then the DH just started last year. So there really hasn't been a spot for them. I think there is a little bit more value here just because it seems like if he's in the lineup, he could be hitting, I don't know, in a better spot potentially, but they could both be buried at the bottom here. I think Baker has a better chance of staying for a little bit longer just with some of the injuries they're dealing with. But with first base DH, the availability for him to play it might just not work out.
Yeah, no, definitely. If I could play devil's advocate for DeLuca, I mean, this is a long shot what I'm about to say. So take it with a grain of salt. But Almonds looked terrible. Trace Thompson went 0 for 40 before he got injured. If DeLuca hits, there's room there. Maybe not necessarily every day, but there's room if DeLuca were to hit. Some things have to go right for DeLuca to stay up and to hit. So, it's not a clear path for playing time, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a possibility. The Dodgers outfield, other than Mookie Betts, is not really set in stone. There's not anybody that has to play. So, I mean, if they have to sit down Jason Hayward, forbid they have to sit him down, or James Outman and his 230 average. Like I think they'll be okay if he comes up and hits. So yeah, I do think there's just visually there's a little bit more room for DeLuca, even though Baker might be, if he gets playing time, might be a little bit more helpful on the power RBI side.
Visually, it's harder to miss Baker because he's like 400 pounds.
Cincinnati called up pitcher Andrew Abbott in 38 innings this year. He's had a 35% K rate, a 9% walk rate. He has a 3.05 ERA and a 1.07 WHIP. I don't know that like the chances that he stays in Cincinnati's rotation or what his role is going to be long term, but definitely an interesting guy to pick up here.
So I think the best news for Abbott is that the Reds have acknowledged that they know they have a minor leagues. That's really good news, because for a while there, I wasn't sure if they even realized that they had minor leagues. I was worried that Dumbbell was like, De La Cruz? What? Christian Encarnacion Strand? What are you telling me? We have more players? I don't know what you're talking about.
They aren't on the starting lineup sheet.
I think Abbott. I mean, honestly, Abbott's been pretty highly touted on. I think not only. I don't think itch necessarily, but I think like MLB has him like in the top 100. I think some people have touted Abbott as like a good arm, a big prospect arm. So my thoughts on him is like his command looks awful, right? Like it's really not like he doesn't look like he has good command. He looks like he could potentially like be a big time strikeout guy, which is alluring, obviously. So that's something. I worry that like the walks and Great American Small Park could lead to some trouble, right? Like Abbott could get done in pretty quickly. Like if he puts a couple guys on in his home park, and he was susceptible to homers in AAA this year. Not necessarily every year in the minors, but this year he was. So anyway, I like him. I'm kind of interested in watching him more than I am in rostering him. I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I don't like Cincy for pitchers in general. I think if anyone, like Hunter Green has shown that like he can, work in Cincy and be so good that he can, he can give you so many strikeouts that he can avoid like, terrible outings, but he still gives up a lot of homers because Cincy's just a bad park. So Hunter Green's even like, iffy. And Hunter Green's much better than Abbott. I mean, Hunter Green's like a 1,000 times better than Abbott. So it's like, do I want to pick up Abbott? Potentially, maybe if he looks good. Like we're recording this Monday afternoon before Abbott pitches. So I mean, if he looks amazing tonight, maybe in like 15-team mixed leagues, sure. Yeah, I could see that. In a 12-team mixed league, picking up a rookie Reds pitcher who has command issues, that sounds bad, man. It does not sound good.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, if you're chasing the upside and you're chasing Ks, I think this could be your guy. If you're trying to maintain numbers or improve on your ERA WHIP, there's definitely going to be some blow-ups at home. I mean, the good news is that other than the Cardinals, the rest of the division is awful. So at least on the road, you could start him potentially in division games. But again, it's kind of a if what you need and how much room do you have to kind of take the shot on Abbott. I wouldn't say you're dropping anybody that you're putting in your starting rotation every week. It's going to be like the guys who have been like nesting on your bench and you just haven't cut them yet. Like those guys can go.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. We're going to talk about Gray's favorite topic in the world, Atlanta starting pitchers. Everybody can go ahead and just drink and get that over with.
I actually really like this guy. Go ahead.
AJ Smith Shawver is coming up. 33 innings this year, 45 Ks. He's given up 4 earned runs across those 33 innings. He's at like a 10-ish% walk rate, so not a great walk rate for the season on him. All right, Gray, you said you actually kind of like an Atlanta starting pitcher called up. That's
okay.
the first time ever.
First of all, before you put words in my mouth, I think Spencer Strider's like the best pitcher in baseball. Like,
yeah,
We'd
have to go back and see what you said last year about him.
I have no problems handing someone their flowers. Okay, as the kids would say, I will deliver your flowers. I will deliver them. Those flowers are yours if you're good. And Strider is really good. Now with Smith Shawver, he looks great too. I mean, I don't want to put like the Strider label on him because that's a high hurdle. The Strider hurdle is a high one, so I don't want to put that on him. But I mean, he looks amazing. Like I already grabbed him in our RCL league, our 12-team mixed league. And that is a pretty shallow league where people really churn a lot of pitchers. And I grabbed him just on the chance that he would take over for Soroka, which it sounds like he will. So I'm really interested in Smith Shawver. I think he could potentially be like as good as, say, Tanner Beebe has been, which is good. I mean, that's a guy who's probably, a top 40 starter, and he was grabbed off of waivers. So that's definitely, that plays in every league. We don't know how he's going to look when he's when he is in the rotation. Obviously, his command is a little wonky too. So there's a chance here, like you mentioned, his walk rate isn't great. So there's a chance here that there's a potential here for a little bit of blow ups. I like his park better than I like Cincy. I like the Braves to score runs for him more than I like Cincy to score runs, even though, Cincy's not a terrible hitting team. But anyway, I like Smith Shawver. I think there's really great potential here, to be honest. I would grab him in just about any league. Like I looked for him on waivers in 2 leagues that are 2 daily leagues, at least 2 leagues that aren't fab. My only 2 leagues that aren't fab. The only 2 leagues where I could pick him up. I looked for him in both leagues. I grabbed him in one, and he was already rostered in the other league, which is I want to say it's a 13-team mixed league. I don't even know. The league changes every year. Yeah. So anyway, I like him. I think he's great. I even though he led to a bunch of people saying I was getting canceled on Twitter, which is like,
what did you do this time?
I made a joke because Max Fried is Jewish and Schuster is Jewish. So I said the Braves rotation was now going to be Jew, Smith, Schuster. And people were like, "Oh, you're canceled." I told that to my Jewish family, and they were like, "What's cancelable there?" I was like, "I don't know, man. I think people are like offended that I said the word Jew."
I don't think everybody knows that you are Jewish, so I think that kind of plays into it as well.
I wouldn't say I'm not wearing a yarmulke or anything, but it's
you like, are. I mean,
yeah, I think Jew. I don't know. A Jew isn't really a word that should cancel people. I don't think, but I don't know. It was such an innocuous joke that it was like. I mean, I told my family, and they were like, "Wait, I don't get it. Why would you get canceled?" I was like, "I don't know, man. I don't know. People on Twitter get mad at stuff. I don't know."
They do, just randomly and whenever they decide to. All right, great. We finished up the conversation on some call ups. Let's jump into a couple other topics here. Josh Jung, number one third baseman on the player rater. That's ahead of Yandy, Muncy, Bobby Witt, Devers, who is the only one who seemed like Witt and Devers seem to fit in here, and then Ryan McMahon to round out the top six third basemen. Where is Jung rest of season for you among third basemen, and like where should he be climbing in dynasty ranks right now? He's hitting 294, 343, 518. He's got 12 home runs. Steele, he's got 42, 38 on the runs and RBIs, and the K rate has come down to 24% in May. So like he's been doing great, Gray.
Yeah, he feels like I'm already getting agita thinking about how I'm going to draft him next year, and he's going to be awful. I already feel that coming. I already feel like my heart is starting to get palpitations at Josh Jung being awful next year when I go in on him. Yeah, no, I mean, I was actually surprised because, like, you know, you write up the outline, and you know you do a good job. and you said he was the number one third baseman on the player rater. And when I saw that, when I was looking ahead at stuff, I was like, really? Wow. Like, I didn't think that. I honestly, and I have Josh Jung. Like, I liked him coming into the year. Actually, I think I have him in that RCL league, in the league we're in together. I'm a big fan of Josh Jung. I was even like, you know, coming into this year, I felt like his value was great. He was, you know, I think he was wrongly considered to be a guy who was going to hit for a poor average. Like, I don't think he's necessarily, like, he may not be, like, right now he's hitting 294, like you mentioned, but I don't think he's like a 240 hitter either. Like, and maybe 270, but that's fine. I mean, 270 is above average at this point in in baseball. So I think his power is real. The Rangers lineup is so good. The problem is, like, you know, the no speed thing really kind of hinders his value, where it's like it's so hard to get like crazy excited for guys who bring no speed whatsoever, because like if there's no speed, they have nothing to fall back on. Like, you know, like it quickly, if Josh Jung stops hitting homers, he can quickly fall behind guys like, you know, Bobby Witt Jr. or, you know, there's not a lot of steals. If I'm gonna be honest, there's not a ton of steals at third base. But, I mean, it's not necessarily something that's super sustainable, like to be the number one third baseman when you don't have any steals whatsoever. Like, you know, I mean, I don't think Yandy Diaz is necessarily going to overtake him either. So Josh Jung, I think, is a sell to a certain extent, but only in that if you could get like what he's actually doing right now, which I don't think you can get. Like, honestly, like people are like sell like so-and-so, and unless you're getting his like actual value right now, you're going to get ripped off, like, basically, unless you need something else. Like, if you need a pitcher, like, and you can pull out, like, you know, a Louis Castillo or something, then, you know, great, do it. That's, you know, apples and oranges, but that's a fair trade. But Josh Jung, where will he be in the second half? I mean, I want to say he's not going to fall off, I don't think. Like, I think he's more or less, like, he's probably like Alex Bregman, but with more power. So that's good. I mean, that's really good, you know. That's
Alex Bregman with trash cans.
Yeah, Alex Bregman with trash cans. There you go.
Would you trade him for Devers?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Devers thing. So I like Devers a lot. I drafted him. He's been somewhat disappointing. But I think Devers is got, like, I mean, he feels a bit like he is so, like, not necessarily, like, the upside doesn't feel like it's there for Devers. Like, I feel like he might have been overdrafted this year. Like, I don't know. I'm cooling on Devers a bit. Like, I think, you know, Devers has probably 35 homer. He's got 35 homer power, and he can hit 280, which is, I mean, I think that's basically Josh Jung. So why trade, what you have for what you could have potentially, So I don't mind, like, I have Devers, like I said. I mean, I don't think he's terrible. I'm just not trading for him with Josh Jung.
Yeah, no, that's fair. What about the only speed component at third base? Would you trade him for Bobby Witt?
Yeah, I mean, I would. Bobby Witt. Obviously, we know my backstory on Bobby Witt. I wasn't in on him in the preseason. I think he's being valued where he should be now. Like if he were, like I said, probably, I don't remember saying it, but I probably said it in the preseason. Like if Bobby Witt was going around like 25 overall, I would have been in on him. I just felt like, at the end of the first round, it was just too high for Bobby Witt. So I didn't really like hate Bobby Witt. I just felt like he was a little bit overrated. With that said, I would take Bobby Witt for Josh Jung if I needed speed. Because his power might be a little bit less, and his average is going to be less for sure. But he's going to give you so many more steals that if you need steals, that's a good trade-off.
Yeah, and I would almost say that to say for sure that the average is going to be lower may not even be necessarily true either. Because if we think that Bobby Witt is like a 250, 260 hitter, and we think that Josh Jung is like a 270, 280 hitter, then based on what they're currently at, like Josh Jung is going to hit for a lower average. He's going to hit like 240, 250 for a couple of months at some point. And Bobby Witt is going to go through a hot spell where he hits 280, 290 for a couple of months. And that's going to end up at 260 and 270, 280 respectively. So, I mean, even that part of it, I think the only place you're going to lose is a little bit of the counting numbers on the RBI side, and then maybe a little bit of power. But I mean, Witt has 10 home runs. He's kind of like he doesn't necessarily launch the ball with a lot of power, but when he hits it, like he gets his home runs out of there pretty easily.
Yeah, and Witt's better suited to hit in the middle of the lineup. It never made sense for him to hit leadoff. I mean, like I said, I don't hate Witt. I think Jung for Witt is totally doable. I mean, that's a trade I could see doing. I don't think anyone's doing it though. I don't think people are trading Bobby Witt for Jung. That's just my opinion. Maybe they would. Maybe someone would do that if they felt like they needed more average potentially. I'm trying to see from like the Bobby Witt owners, perspective. I don't know if someone would take Jung, but if they would. Yeah, I mean, I can see that trade. I think it's a fair trade, though. I don't think it's necessarily like a slam dunk in either direction.
Yeah, I agree. As a Bobby Witt owner in a lot of leagues, I probably wouldn't take it because, again, I think it's going to be a lot closer home runs and average potentially the rest of the season than what it looks like so far. And as you mentioned, like the speed makes a difference there. And in a lot of my leagues, I actually probably could lose some speed and be fine. I still don't think I'd give up just the overall value straight up. Jesus Luzardo has gone from a 3.16 ERA to a 4.05 ERA after a couple of recent struggles. Two of the last three games have really just blown his numbers up. He's getting behind in counts and not getting over to his breaking ball as much. Bullpen's also given up some inherited runners, so it's not all him. Where are you at on Jesus Luzardo? I know it's a guy that we both liked. I was definitely ringing the bell early in the season. I'm still ringing the bell. I think it was just a couple of outings here, but are you on board, or you think there's some signs of struggle here?
No, I mean, I'm on board. I think he's probably a guy who I think he's a good buy low. I think there's some potential here for him to not only bounce back, but to be really good for like the remainder of the season. He's got, he is probably my biggest worry for him is nothing really to do. Like his numbers, like his ERA is elevated for where I think he could be. Like I think he can come down to like the 3 range, 3.3 area of ERA. But my biggest concern is he may not have like a ton more innings potentially. Like he only threw 100 innings last year. He's at 66 right now. I don't know. Maybe he throws like another 66, maybe 70. But I think at a certain point, they're probably going to pull back on him a little bit. Especially if they're out of the race, which I'm assuming they will be. So, yeah, I mean, I like Luzardo. I think he could be much better than he's been, but I don't know how much more innings he's going to really throw. Like he might get shut down in like, what are we, June? I mean, you might only get like 2.5 more months of him.
Yeah, it's possible. I think they could potentially go with a 6-man rotation when some of their injured guys come back. I mean, they've got Cueto, who's indefinitely on the IL. I don't even think he's coming back this year at this point.
Trevor Rogers is due back soon.
Trevor Rogers is due back. So, I mean, they could go to a 6-man. He could get kind of spread out here and there. And I think their whole rotation, other than Alcantara, probably could use a little bit of extra innings in there because I don't think anybody in their rotation has ever thrown over 150 other than Alcantara, who's, he's giving innings, but that's about it at this point.
What's really cool, Yuri Perez is going to, I mean, he's probably, my prediction is he gets bumped completely from the rotation when Trevor Rogers comes back. And Perez goes to either the bullpen or he gets sent down. I mean, he's got like so few innings that I just don't see him really throwing any, to be honest. Like he might have like another month total of innings. Like, so we're talking like, 35, 40, not much.
Yeah, I think he's a buy for me just because the numbers, like I said, they've gone from really pristine to bad over a few starts. So if somebody's kind of panicking, I would go ahead and make that buy. Velocity looks fine, movement looks good. Would you have him as a top 30 starting pitcher rest of the season, given kind of the innings limitations and the couple recent blowups?
Yeah, he's still probably top 30 for me. I mean, I don't know if there is a top 30 though. There's so many terrible pitchers. There's a top 10, and then there's like 40 pitchers that are just like, It's just like, oh God, do I have to start this guy? But yeah, I think he's top 30 still.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're looking at, even just inside the top 10 or just outside the top 10 has not been, impervious to getting blown up. Mitch Keller has had a couple of bad outings recently. Garrett Cole's a little banged up. Clayton Kershaw's had a couple bad outings. Ohtani had his first kind of badish outing. So like there's been some issues here. Moving on, Aaron Judge has a toe injury from running into the wall Saturday. As the number one player last year, I just felt like we needed to bring it up. They haven't said if it's serious yet or not. They said they hope it's not. I feel like that gives us no information whatsoever. But Jake Bauers, IKF, Willie Calhoun, and Oswaldo Cabrera was called back up as well. Bauers and IKF, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, has been hitting pretty well recently, and Cabrera got up for like one game and had a hit. So in his one plate appearance, I believe. So where are you at on the Yankees outfield minus Aaron Judge?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably Jake Bauers and IKF, like you mentioned, have been super hot. So I guess they're kind of interesting in like daily leagues if they're getting at bats, but I don't know. And yeah, I mean, as we record this, we haven't heard yet on Aaron Judge. So, hopefully he's fine. We'll see.
Yeah. So just to keep an eye out, maybe there's a little bit of increased playing time. So if you're looking at outfielders for the temporary situation here, you could actually just look internally in the Yankees situation. Unlike the next guy we're going to talk about, which is Cedric Mullins, who has former Yankee great Aaron Hicks taking his spot. He just somehow gets a job again, Aaron Hicks. We can't get rid of him. But let's talk about some outfield replacement because I'm not going to tell anybody to go pick up Aaron Hicks. I just refuse to do it.
Yeah. I think there was one person in the comments. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but someone said Colton Cowser could potentially get called up. I don't know. I mean, that might have been someone just talking.
Hoping.
But, yeah, hoping, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he should get called up.
He should.
Right? I mean, why wouldn't he be called up? It's like, what do you like? So many of these teams, like, what are you guys waiting for? It's like a guy's 23 years old, tearing up the minors, tearing up AAA. It's like, what are you waiting for, guys? Like, what are you doing? It was so stupid. It's really dumb. Anyway, with that said, yeah, I mean, Eddie Rosario been hot. Keel Badu's been hot. I don't know. We'll talk about waiver wire pickups in a few at the end of the show. But yeah, I mean, Cedric Mullins' injury stinks. I have him in one league where he was really doing well. Actually, I have Cedric Mullins in the same league. I have Cedric Mullins, Jake McCarthy, and Estuary Ruiz, and I'm still only like 7th place for steals. I have so many steals. Like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about pickups later, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if Colton Cowser gets brought up, that's definitely a name or a guy to go grab. He's got 8 home runs, 5 stolen bases. He's hitting 347, 484, 590 across 39 games in AAA this year. And the reason they may not have called him up to this point was he was dealing with a little bit of quad injury over the last couple of weeks. So maybe after he gets acclimated, we'll get to see him up in Baltimore. But that's just a hope and a prayer at this point. I mean, fingers crossed, but I'm not expecting it. Now, an outfielder that it might have been better for him to stay on the IL for the sake of my teams has been Michael Harris. He continues to struggle. 37 games. He's got 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases, but he's hitting 168, 254. I mean, all the numbers kind of look in line with last year, Gray, except for the BABIP, which is 212 versus 361, and the home run, the fly ball, which has gone from 22.9% to 6.9%. Do I need to panic?
Did you draft Sandy Alcantara?
No. Why would I draft Sandy Alcantara?
No, because I'm realizing because you love Bobby Witt Jr., you hate Bo Bichette, you drafted Michael Harris II. All the guys I hate, you draft somehow. I don't know how this happened. I thought we were like on the same page. Every time I say something, you're like, yeah, that makes sense, Gray. But then I think going on in the back of your head, you're like, this guy's an idiot.
Well, if I gave you all my opinion, this would be a 3-hour show, Gray. We have to move it along at some point.
Are you patronizing me? Yeah, man. Like I said, Michael Harris II was overrated. I totally stand by that call. Obviously, no, I stand by all my calls, even the wrong ones. But this one was really right. I mean, I was really, really right on Michael Harris II. I saw this coming a mile away, man. Like he hit so many like just ground balls and like I mean just like a ton of ground balls. It's just like it's so many. It was really a concern. And then like the strikeout rate was high. I think I forget now like which players. I want to say it was like like 2 players in like the last 40 years had a K rate that was as bad as his and hit 297. Like he really had like a lucky year last year. Like he hit 297. It was luck based. I mean, it really was. Like he is a fast guy, so his BABIP should be higher than 212 where it is. So I could see a correction, and I could see him maybe getting up to like 230 potentially, but he's not a good average bat because he's hit so many ground balls and he's a guy who strikes out a decent amount. Not a ton. Like he's not like a 40% strikeout rate guy. Like don't get me wrong. And he has speed. So there's some value there. Like I'm getting comments now on Razzball about, people who want to just drop him outright. And in a 10-team mixed league, I mean, he's batting 9th. I mean, if you have better options in the 10-team mixed league, I say go for it. In most leagues, I would try and be more patient, but, because he should be better. Like, I don't think like this is the end of his career. Like, I don't think he's going to get like sent to the minors and just be totally done. But that possibility is on the table now. And it wasn't even on the table before. So, I mean, I still like him. Now he needs to turn his season around before things get even worse than they are. Hopefully that happens. So, and because he's got power and speed, I wouldn't be opposed to a buy low, but it would be really low. Like I would be ripping off the Michael Harris II person who had him. So yeah, I mean, hope for the best. I saw this coming though, man. I can't believe you just everything I say. Oh my God! Right now you're not even listening to me. You've muted me. I see you.
No, I've just tuned you out because you're trashing my boy Michael Harris. Which, by the way, if you look at his numbers and compare him to your boy Bo Bichette from his first time up in the majors, eerily close.
No, not Bo Bichette.
Really eerily close there, Gray. That's all I'm gonna say on that topic. Okay, that's what I had to say about that. And by the way, Bo Bichette of like Christian Yelich launch angle right now. Let's not get too crazy. Okay, I think Michael Harris is a great buy low. He's got a terrible BABIP. The home run left fly ball is ridiculous. Like 23% probably was high. That's definitely high for him. But like 7% is low. Everything is in line. Like the exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit rate, line drive, fly ball, ground ball is actually down. The only thing that's maybe up a little bit is first strike rate. He might be reaching a little bit now that he's struggling and trying to get those first pitch fastballs. That's kind of the issue. Is like he destroyed every fastball last year. Right now, it's just not happening. So I think this is a buy low. I do think you can buy him very low right now, and I do think there's still every bit of what I thought he was going to do left out there at some point, Gray.
Okay.
All right.
No, I do think he can get better. I would just, I would put it in, my trades that I would offer for him would be like, I'd be like, well, I'll trade you a closer for him. Like, because people in the comments are frustrated for Michael Harris.
I get it.
Yeah. I mean, they're ready, people are ready to cut bait. So you could probably buy really low.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can, and I think it's worth it. Now, until he gets turned around, he is going to continue to hit at the bottom of the lineup. So that's really an issue. But other than that, I think it's going to get turned around. And then once it does, then he has the possibility to move up and kind of find more at-bats as well. The injury to start the season has just got him off on a bad start. Just the Steele injury, he's got a left forearm strain. One of the only starting pitchers that we thought we could trust, at least until the innings ran out. Hayden Wesneski, Ben Brown, maybe Caleb Killian, although he's been pretty awful down in the minors, are some of kind of the fillers we're looking at here. Are you interested in any of the Cubs rotation pieces?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, I know only I'm interested in everyone, but Wesneski, I guess if he pitches well in the majors, I mean, I could loosen up my not interested into, mildly interested, but, for now, I'm not really interested in not in mixed leagues, at least.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I don't know that any of them warrant mixed league. Maybe Ben Brown. If Ben Brown gets called up, he could have K's kind of in the way that we were talking about earlier, where like you're gonna have to deal with some kind of in an Andrew Abbott way, with like where you're gonna have to deal with some blow ups. And I don't necessarily know that he's on the level of Andrew Abbott, but like there's gonna be strikeouts. I believe he has that ability. So that would be the only potential interesting pickup here. Eduardo Rodriguez has a finger injury, a ruptured A4 pulley in his left index finger. I didn't know we had pulleys in our left index finger. I guess that makes sense, but he's out at least 6 weeks, probably longer.
My uncle has a pulley, and when you pull it, he farts.
Yeah, how long have you been falling for that one, Gray?
Since a kid. I looked up. I know what you're gonna say because I read the outline. You're wondering who's gonna take over Eduardo Rodriguez's spot. I looked at the Tigers' draft picks for the last 20 years. I wasn't super impressed. I'll be honest. They haven't had the best drafts in the last
Mark Appel is not a good starting point.
Maybe a decade or two. Like their last good starter that they drafted is already retired. That was Rick Porcello. Like it's like, I mean, they drafted Verlander, but like Jesus, that's a long time ago. I mean, he's practically in the Hall of Fame already. I mean, it's like they really don't have anyone. Reese Olson looked kind of interesting in his first start, but his minor league numbers don't look good at all. So I would be real hesitant about picking him up. But yeah, I don't think I know. You were about to ask who's taking over for Eduardo Rodriguez, and I don't think anyone is. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just saying. I mean, no disrespect to the Tigers, but maybe fire your scouts. I don't know.
Fire the scouts. Fire the injury people.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got so many people on the IL right now. They've got Faedo, Manning, Mize, Scooble, Eduardo, Turnbull, Brisk. Like that's ridiculous.
And those are all guys who are supposed to be good, but I mean, I don't know. Casey Mize is supposed to be good for like the last 4 years. Like, Matt Manning's supposed to be good. Where's that? I don't know. Anyway, they're all injured anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
All right, moving on to another, vacant spot in a rotation. Chris Sale is going on the IL with shoulder inflammation. I think they might have said, or there's speculation it's Cutter Crawford, but there's Kluber and Pivetta in the bullpen, so it could kind of be a mix here in Boston. Are you interested in any of those guys?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, AL only, sure. Cutter Crawford, I think Cutter Crawford's probably more interesting as he's a potential streamer for like a 12-team mixed league. He needs to have he needs to work up his innings. So you don't really want to stream a guy who's only going to go 4 innings, for instance. So he's got to work up his innings, and maybe we'll come back to Cutter Crawford in like a couple weeks if Sale's still out and Crawford's in the rotation. Then he might potentially get on 12-team mixed league radars, but right now he's not there yet.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if they don't want to mess with Pivetta since he's actually been he's actually been pretty solid as a reliever, and as a starter, he's just a gigantic bomb that you drop on the field and lose games.
It's the first time that Pivetta's ever been in the same sentence as solid. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably leave him where he is since he has been solid for the first time ever.
All right, going over to their rival.
By the way, I just looked up Pivetta's stats. He has a 5+ ERA for his career. I mean, it's not a small sample size either. It's like 800 innings.
And he keeps getting paid somehow. People keep paying him.
800 innings,
4 or 5 ERAs.
Oh yeah. I mean, anyway, go ahead.
That's okay. We can, that's what we're here. We're here to complain about some of the terrible pitchers at times. Moving over to the Red Sox rivals, the Yankees. Nestor Cortez is maybe going to the IL. They're not sure. I would guess it would be Johnny Brito that comes up and takes his spot while he goes to the IL. I would be interested in Brito if he goes back in the rotation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, potentially I could see that. I could see, because, I mean, he's probably a streamer.
He doesn't get the Ks to stay on the rotation.
Yeah. I mean, I could see potentially being interested as a streamer, but I mean, he's not like super wildly interesting. Like I don't see him as like AJ Smith Shawver or something. Like it's, it could be okay. The Nestor Cortez thing brings up a interesting point of like, at what point was he terrible? At what point during his reign of being terrible was he obviously injured, or is he not injured and they're just saying like you're terrible? It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. It's like, are you terrible or are you injured or are you terrible because you're injured? Hard to say.
All the mix of terrible is what I heard. I just kept hearing terrible over and over again. Great. Okay. Moving on. Let's talk about the bullpen news here. Justin Lawrence for the Rockies has gotten a couple of saves here in the last week. Do we think he's taking this kind of committee over? Is he just jumping into the mess that is the Rockies committee? Where are you at on him? I actually grabbed him in a couple weeks for like next to nothing.
Yeah, so did I. I picked him up in pretty deep leagues for like nothing. Like,
yeah.
I mean, his numbers look fine, and if that's who Bud Black is going to for saves, like, I don't know why he's going to him. Like, I'll say that. Like, I can't figure out the reason necessarily. Like, Daniel Bard's been great since he returned. Like, I don't know. Like, is Bud Black like punishing him because he's like, oh, you were out for anxiety. Like, oh, I'm punishing you for that. Or like something else going on there. I don't know. I'm actually, my family, not my family, but my wife's family is friends with Daniel Bard's family, which is, someone could be listening from his family. Anyway, Justin Lawrence looks fine. I mean, I grabbed him. I think he looks good. I don't know. I don't know why Bard hasn't taken over the ninth again. I mean, maybe I could have Cougs reach out to someone in the family and be like, does he not want to pitch the ninth? I don't know. I mean, I honestly have no clue. I think Justin Lawrence, though, is the guy. Like, Pierce Johnson was awful for like 3 weeks. Like, he is completely not the guy. Everyone can lose him in every league. Like, he looks bad. Justin Lawrence has looked good. So yeah, I would. And like, as far as Bard goes, it's like the Rockies aren't good enough for me to speculate on a setup man. So I would just pick up Justin Lawrence and be done with the whole situation.
Yeah, until, something else happens and Bud goes off in some other random direction. Yeah, I mean, Pierce Johnson was not the answer for that one. So that one we can move on from. Now, a guy that we kind of mentioned as maybe being droppable in some leagues was Clay Holmes, who had fallen out of the saves opportunities here, but he's gotten a couple as over this last week. Has he gotten his job back, Gray, or are we just still guessing week to week with the Yankees?
I think it's still going to be a committee for right now, but Clay Holmes, like, he looks as good as he looked last year again. Yeah. Like, he's fine. Like, he should get the job back. Like, I don't know why. Sometimes managers get it in their heads. They're like, oh, he's successful in the 8th inning, so we're going to keep throwing him in the 8th. Like, okay, whatever that means. I don't know. I'm not sure. But like you said, I mean, he's gotten some saves, so he's probably worth picking up again in shallower leagues. In like shallower than 12 team, I think that's too shallow. I think 10 team is probably too shallow at this point for Clay Holmes. But a 12-team mixed league, yeah, I can see it there. I've moved him for a while. I moved him out of my starting lineup in some weekly leagues, deeper leagues where I held on to him, and I've moved him back into my lineup now. I think he's probably, at least if he's not the number one option, he's at least like 1A, and Michael King and Wandy Peralta are like a committee of 1B. So I think Clay Holmes is the first one, and then the other two.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be a bit of a mess, but it seems like Holmes is regaining his job. And since he's had it before, you would think there wouldn't really be a hesitation to necessarily move him back there. I mean, they just used the hell out of him and Michael King last year. They just obliterated their arms. So there really wasn't a question as to why they struggled, at least not in my mind.
They should have like, right now I'm on the WGA is on strike. I went out and picketed. Anyway, it's somewhat related. They should have like middle reliever unions because like middle relievers, they abuse these guys, man. They're like when a guy is going good, they're like, well, you can throw 80 innings this year every like 3 times in 3 days. Like, oh my, like you've got a feel for like the shoulder and the elbow of some of these middle relievers. Like they are just so abused that like, and I mean, I kind of understand it from the team perspective. It's like Clay Holmes, if something happens to Clay Holmes, you go out and get like a Cano from like the Orioles or something. Like it's like there's so many middle relievers. It's like, you just develop another one. You just go out and grab a middle reliever from somewhere else. Unfortunately, that's why I'm saying they should unionize. Okay. Anyway, go ahead. Next.
Yeah, I mean, gotta set some boundaries and some ground rules there upon usage. At least get paid a little bit, I mean, then they do the whole like you can't close because we don't want to boost your arbitration numbers like that. Like closing should matter in that at all.
I know. And also like they abuse them so much that it's like by the time they're ready to get a contract, their arm is like in a bucket somewhere and it's like, oh crap, I left my arm in a bucket in my car. Can I go get it? Like, dude, you should have your arm attached to your body.
This is a closer changing news, but Andres Munoz kind of was the closer to begin the season with Seattle. It was like him and Sewell going back and forth. Since then, Paul Sewell's been very, very solid, doing his job as the Mariners closer. Do you think there's any kind of potential for a Munoz-Sewell committee again? Are you picking up Andres Munoz in deeper leagues to speculate, maybe even shallow leagues if you're chasing saves?
Yeah, maybe. If you're chasing saves, sure, I could see it. But I think it's Sewell like 80-20 at worst right now. I mean, these things change quickly. So Sewell was to have like a rough game or two, then maybe that changes. But right now, I think it's probably Sewell's job, more or less, like 80-20, maybe even 85-15. So, yeah, I think Sewell's still fine, but, obviously it could change.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think if you could actually potentially trade Sewell for maybe a little bit more safe closer at this point, that might be something worth exploring as just an option. Or if you have saves, trade them for a piece that you need and, try and grab your save, just maintain where you are within saves. All right, great. Let's talk about some pickups and really we can just look at kind of what happened last week on the hitter side, because there was all sorts of guys who kind of randomly went off last week, whether you believe in them or not.
Yeah, no, completely. Like Eddie Rosario had like the best week since like 2019. I forget when Rosario was good. I think it was 2019 he was good.
Bouncy ball year, that seems right.
Bit me too because like the main event team that Donkey and I are co-managing, Donkey was like, let's pick up Eddie Rosario. And I was like, no, Ronan Odor. Anyway, Odor was fine, but Rosario would have been the pickup. Okay, so anyway, yeah, Eddie Rosario's been hot. Jake Bauers, we mentioned already. Spencer Steer's been great. Tommy Pham has been hot. I don't know what his playing time's going to be like. Jake Freely has been so good. I mean, what was it? I think he had like 3 steals on Saturday, a homer and 3 steals, and then he followed that with another homer, I think, on Sunday. So Jake Freely's been great. Romy Gonzalez out of nowhere had like 3 straight games with a homer. Chris Taylor's been good. Jake McCarthy's been stealing everything. Like I was watching the Diamondbacks game on Sunday, and Jake McCarthy just got on first, and it was like before you knew he was on third. Like he's running, which is great for us. I mean, it's good for our game. So, yeah, Jake McCarthy, if you need steals. Mark Kenha, again, back to the Mets. I don't know what their playing time is going to be like, but he's been hot. And Taylor Ward, finally, looks like Taylor Ward might be coming out of that early season slump.
Yeah, possibly coming around as he gets it together there. So that's nice to see. On the pitching side, if you're looking for some possible streamers, Brian Bayo is actually already going. He already went today, but he's got another matchup at Yankees. It's not really an ideal matchup, but it was a 2-start week. Tampa Bay at New York. So if you had the guts to start him, you at least got one solid outing in the way, and hopefully at New York. Hopefully they're without Judge still, because that'll help a lot.
You had to throw in, you had the guts to start him. Okay, B-Don, you know I benched him today. I mean, you know it.
Yeah, that's why I said it, Gray. That's what I'm doing here. Dean Kramer goes at Milwaukee. Not the greatest park to go, but the Brewers are not exactly a scary offense. Looking at, Brady Singer at Baltimore, you could potentially go there. Adrian Hauser's actually been pretty good coming out of the bullpen into the starter's role. He's got Oakland this week, so Oakland, as we mentioned last week, you get a start against Oakland, go ahead and run them out there.
Actually, my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law was in town this week, but he brought up a good point. He asked me, I'm not really a gambler, but he was saying to me, is like, why don't we just bet the A's? I mean, bet the A's to lose like every game. Isn't that smart? And I was like, yeah, I think that does make sense to me. I don't know.
You don't win anything. That's why you don't do it.
Yeah. I think that was what we came down to, because he was like, I think you probably had to bet $300 to win $1.
Yep, that's about where their line is these days. So, Unfortunately, not a lot of money to be made on the A's being awful. Everybody sees it, and Vegas sees all.
Oh well.
Greinke goes at Miami. Taiwan Walker, Detroit. Kyle Gibson has been good as well. You can look at him. There's a few names. If you have other names that you're looking at for potential spot starts, you can always ask myself or Gray. I am on Twitter at Razzball. Gray is the at Razzball account. Listen, subscribe, rate, review wherever you listen to this podcast, or if you watch us on youtube.com/RazzballFantasy, do the same out there. We'll answer your questions in the comments there as well. Gray's always answering comments in his articles, as you all know. Till next week, Gray, have a good one.
All right, Lates.